Go.
Good evening. My name is Mansar, and we are here in another segment of Projects for Peace and Possibilities, or also we call it Rumi and More for past 14 years. And I have two ladies here, Bathsheba Monk, an author and publisher. Also, we have Noelle Emperado. She's an author and a teacher, an artist, and we would like you to join us with very casual conversation. We had some technical problems, and we are good back again, and hope you are with us. So I would like to read a little bit about our guest tonight, Noel Imperado is a Franco-American artist based in Baltimore after having spent 30 years in Los Angeles. She has a PhD in methodological with an emphasis in depth psychology. Noel is the founder and leader of Painting for Life and Creative Potential and provides psychological healing and spiritual awakening through building community and using painting as a mindful practice. Noel, you do exactly what we have been doing for years, including myself, and with the programs at the Watermark Gallery. If you see on the back here, that's the last event we had at World Trade Center in Baltimore downtown. So we are happy to have you also as our tonight guest. So the microphones are open, and you ladies welcome to just relax and start.
Well, Noelle, I'm very interested in your book about the portraits, about the faces. Can you tell us about that?
Okay. Basically, for the last 25 years, I've been involved with painting as a mindfulness practice and healing and awakening. And so for 15 years, I did this kind of practice for my own benefit as much as I was conducting, workshops. But I was doing. I started in Los Angeles when I quit Hollywood, and I was doing my PhD in psychology. So on the side, I went to SLN Institute. The famous SLN Institute in
Yeah.
California,
Uh-huh.
and that's where I learned about process art painting, because I don't like to call it art therapy, because it's not to fix people's illness. It's more to help people thrive, healthy normal people. It's not for people who are under heavy psychiatric drug or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did that for 15 years. I really enjoyed it, and I was doing the workshop, and I was doing also my own work. And so after 15 years, I felt like, okay, I think I have come to a certain closure here with my own work, and somehow I felt compelled to write about it. And
Uh-huh.
so when I called the book Painting for Life, healing journey in 40 portraits. Portraits don't mean just portrait of a face, Portrait,
Yeah.
like in the Jungian time term, basically everything you paint is a portrait, in the sense that if you paint it from a very personal, felt, emotional place, which this was. So a lot of those images are being inspired by events in my life. You might say somehow it turned out they were all the major milestones of my life, because of,
Ah.
yeah, I mean, when you are sort of digging into your own subconscious to look for any issues or any emotions, that have not been really properly processed, you automatically reconnect with the people that are meaningful to you.
Yeah.
And as you do that, mother, father, yourself as an infant or as a young child, and sometimes it's not a very big event, like my life, although I was born under the bombings of World War II in France.
Ah.
My house was actually bombed,
Oh
and
my God.
we had to go in exodus. And I
Wow.
was 2 months old when that happened. So, but being 2 months old, I don't really remember too much of it, although I did have nightmares of the bombing of the house for until I was 40 years old.
Wow. I bet. I bet. So your paintings reflect that? Do you have a painting about the bombing?
I do actually.
You do. Do
Yeah.
you think, okay, do you think that these are, well, first of all, do you think most of your regular paintings are beautiful? Would you call them beautiful or more challenging? Or I don't know how you would talk about them.
Well, I think there is a range of some I would consider beautiful, especially the one I did towards the end, because
Mhm.
after dealing with like challenging subjects, like I did at the beginning, like the very first meaningful painting I did was a painting of my mother and father conceiving me
Oh, really?
under the bombings. So that
That's very precocious.
yeah, so that was pretty challenging painting. But then towards the end, I did a lot of painting that are more expressing, Kundalini arising and opening of the chakras and sort of diving into deities as knowing by identity, these kind of techniques, which are basically Buddhist technique that I have been using, some of them, most of them actually, without really knowing what I was doing, but somehow I was following the Buddhist teaching with a teacher that I really connected with. And
Yeah.
so automatically, all the teachings that were more general about meditation, I sort of applied them in painting.
Ah. So
Yeah,
now you got my interest. I want to see these paintings.
Yeah, yeah. I asked
yeah.
Cesar if I should bring some. I mean, if I was on Zoom, I could share them, but no, I don't know how to send them to
Yeah,
you.
you know how to do that. Yeah. Well, maybe.
Yeah, well, we can have you again, of course, invite you again to share more with us. Actually, I have seen Noelle's paintings. I have been to her house, her studio, and they are quite haunting, I have to say.
Mhm.
And so raw, so organic, so right into your face. It's
Uh-huh.
just, you can't, as you speechless. They are that powerful. And what I want to say here, as Noelle mentioned about bombing her house, and she was born, she was like 2 months old or whatever. I do remember that my house overseas, the same thing. One of my father's school was bombed, and in another occasion, the when they bomb, there are certain things that go for miles and miles, and my father magically and miraculously he was saved. One of these things, something like a grenade comes to you and you're done.
Wow.
So is it's so, and those people, I remember, like, I would visit after the war, and I listened to these stories, Bathsheba. That's
Mhm.
what you want, those stories, which those stories could save a lot of people's life, and we can learn and develop certain compassion within us that what has happened to these people. I
Mhm.
remember in one of my visits, I would create a sculpture. Whatever I see around, and like metal here, pieces there, and I put something together. And my brother later told me, which he was in front, his friends on front were vanished, they were killed. Next to him, the bomb goes, and the friend is in the air. And he miraculously he was safe and came back home.
Mm.
So one day that I had finished this sculpture, he came and look. He says, "I feel like this. I feel." And this sculpture was two pieces, was like a person. This is what he saw himself in it.
Mm.
Wow.
As I feel I'm like this. And thinking and remembering Noel's painting. Oh my God, why don't we learn from this? Or do we learn and we don't care? What is going on with humanity? People like you, Bathsheba, and Noel, and thousands of people out there, especially women, that we do care so much about our loved ones.
Hmm.
Don't want to have them in such, you know, energy. Anyway, just remember some of these segments that I was witnessing myself. But yes, again, back to Bathsheba, and I was thinking such a important job you will have to put these stories and let it out so everybody has in the way in literal form, although Noel says it in powerful imagery.
Well, I think it's important to. I
And
think it's important to get it down.
sorry.
Oh, I'm
I'm
sorry. Go ahead,
sorry.
Val. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, Manzar said I said it in a painting form, but with the book, I hope also people can connect it with the literature of it. Because what I realized is that by reflecting on the paintings, not all the process had been done when I was painting. Like the first painting I mentioned to you about my mother and father, I did it with a lot of anger. So the painting comes out, like a portray my parents in a rather grotesque way.
Yes.
I did have some insight about underneath the anger, finding the love, that's always there. And so I did have an insight about that when I was painting. And I remember, especially once the painting was over, I went to Helen's bath and I had like an epiphany there. But that doesn't mean, you have the whole thing processed, So writing about the painting was another way to really integrate what I had learned with the painting and all the insights, but integrate them more and get more link, more insight, and all that. So literature is also part of my work. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I just one of my cousins actually, her mother was a teacher in a school for children who the system basically gave up on. They were passed around to foster home to foster home,
Mm.
and her poetry. Um, and actually, I taught in a school like that as a substitute, so I knew who these kids were. But just the act of observing them in in poetry, and it was very simple. It was just observing these children and what they have gone through in their homes and in the systems and what was still ahead of them and what was stacked against them just filled me with so much understanding about who they were that um, I came to see that just turning your lens, either with painting or with writing, poetry, or anything, just turning your lens on somebody changes how you see the world. But also, I found out later that these children knew that they were in this book, and they felt elevated. They felt that their life was given some validity because they were observed. And so,
Definitely.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. And actually, the workshop that I lead, the big part of it is it offers safe containers for the people to share. And at first, I was not sure, about. I was not focused. Let's say I was more focused on, and I was doing it in person in the studio, so I was more focused on healing on one-on-one. But then when I did it in Zoom, it turned out that people came regularly. Like I have people now for coming groups, that are homogeneous for a whole year. And it turned out that the container, the community, the learning about each other, the communicating with each other, the sharing of their deep, personal. Sometimes, I encourage to share your deepest secret if you can, which slowly people become able to. So, which kind of distantiate them and let them go. And so this whole aspect of community, of sharing and listening and being heard, that's a huge part of the healing process. Yeah.
We lost no
Toshiba, yeah.
Shiba. Where is she?
I know. I lost. I'm sorry. I went out. At my house, Wi-Fi isn't so good.
But you heard me?
I did. I kept hearing you. Yes, I did.
Oh, good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so being heard is very important, having a voice. And I think, Manzar, when you mention women, need to have a voice, they need to be heard, they need to, especially women, because in our patriarchal culture, uh, obviously it's been in a tradition, that the women are kept more or less silent. But thank God this has changed a lot in the last century. And hopefully now we are in a position that's a lot better, but that doesn't mean there is still a lot of progress to be done.
You see, what it is not necessarily men or women, it's human insecurities, which shows itself in a variety of ways. I mean, but if you are a woman, it seems more you're subjugated to whatever, and men are less to sort of say, hey, you are this. Like if a woman is assertive, is bi whatever, and if a man is, oh, that's great, and we often remember, like let's say we hear Alexander the Great. What was the great about? The man had 19 years of campaign or so.
Well, he did
and
conquer the world.
and took over this or that or the other. And of course, men didn't have anything to do then, so they just follow him, as still we do.
Manzar, you have to put it into a more of a historical perspective.
Right, in historical. But
10,000 years
when you go, Noel, when you go to, I had to do certain research at the Metropolitan Museum. The way they show the chivalrous, the elegance, or they make it's great to do. I mean, what it is we still educate, museum educate people. It's another kind of a school. It's a school. What do we teach to our children when we take them for the field trip? And here at the Metropolitan Museum, I had to voice my opinion there. I don't know what's going on right now. It was like 3 years ago. And they show a man with a nude man, the sword in his hand, and a head of another person in his. What kind of education? What are we teaching our children? I know it's history, but there are a lot of things in history. What are we communicating through those images, through those sculptures and paintings? I mean, isn't it?
The context, I don't know. You have images of Kali, for instance, exactly like that, with a sword and holding a head. But then in her image, the head is symbolizing ego and the sword is symbolizing her wisdom. So she's sort of chopping the ego out of you with her wisdom. So that's the symbol. So you have to put
Oh
them
no, I don't know. Because look, at contemporary time, we have art also. We have art historian, and you can talk about the psychological, anthropological, and other philosophical aspect of the art. But the most effective to teach children, these are children coming in. What do they know? What is ego about? Huh? 6-year-old, 10-year-old ego about the sword, and I just see the power of image. This is again part of image. Then to say what it is about, I don't know. At least I would educate them in some other level, and then I bring that sword and a head and whatever else. That's for adults anyway. I think if it's helpful.
Well,
Anyway,
Montar, we're a violent species, and
I
and
don't know. We are
and
as
his
beautiful, as
and I was and
kind
I
as
was
we
and I was
can be.
and I was going to say that women, as women gain more power artistically and in the public forum in our society, that the images will change. But then I think back to some paintings in Western culture where they cut off the head of was it John the Baptist or somebody? Well,
Yeah,
you would probably.
Holoferno too. Yeah, Judith and
Well,
Holoferno. Yeah, we have that too. Yeah, I
well,
disagree with
so
that
we're
also.
just violent. That's how we define ourselves, by what we
Yeah,
conquer.
well, I don't know. Also, I think we have to really go back into a greater perspective because humans have been around for 2 million years or something, or at least they've been taking that long, to learn to stand up on 2 feet and to learn to use a tool and to learn. So it took us a whole long time to become sophisticated enough, to learn about agriculture, let's say 10,000 years ago. And yes, the last 10,000 years have been basically warring for land. And who is going to rule this land or that land? And then the last few centuries have been to coalesce the land into bigger countries. And now we are reaching the point where we have like some mega plots around the planet. And now the task is, can we get together enough to be able to govern as a humanity on the planet so that we can all thrive and survive, and even.
Exactly. Exactly. That's what we try to do, right? That this very program is about it. What you are doing is about it. What we are doing, what Bathsheba is doing is about it. It's time for women and the love we have for one another, for humanity. Apparently, I'm not a scientist, but as I listen to these scientists, they say, well, women head is more balanced.
Really?
Yeah, right brain, left brain, and we have certain hormonal that men do not have, oxytocin, namely. I mean,
Uh-huh.
men have some oxytocin too, but women have the highest. And yeah, just go to talk to neuroscientists and see what they say. Well, at least let's say if it's not the case even, but we should have women 50-50 decision making. And research has shown when women appear on negotiating table for peace, they do last longer. The peace process and the fire stop or whatever, they last longer, that peace process that they so, and I'm sure it's going to be better. Look, we have young women. They are incredible, wise young women we have in society. And of
Mhm.
course, we got to learn more from them. These are our
Mhm.
sisters, our mothers, our wives,
Yeah, so it's happening. We have
Yes,
a strong young woman right now, and the young generation also is a lot more peaceful and
yes.
wise. They had a lot more information and everything. But in terms of cutting men against women.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
We're not doing that. Not at all.
I like it more to deal with it as an archetypal value. So the feminine values are the one thing that we need to bring onto the table right now, because for 10,000 years we've been warring against each other with a prevalence of masculine values. And of course, the men were going to war, and no wonder they come back the way they come back. I personally always wonder, how would I do if I was sent on a battlefield with a sword in my hand and having to plunge it into somebody's belly right in front of me? I mean, think about it. That's what our men have been doing for centuries, and so it has created
As
them.
somebody who's
But I think, if we look at it more like there are the feminine values, which are loving and caring and
Yeah.
communicating and, being fluid, being tolerant, and especially, kind of embracing everything. That's what we need. And then, of course, nowadays, especially since there is all sorts of gender, there is not just man and woman. It's very difficult to talk about masculine and feminine values by gender style, because there is all the in between. So I think it's easier for everybody to say archetypal values, because then they can be embraced by anybody. He, they, she, anybody, can be
Yeah,
fitting
that's why we have a
in
little
the
different
spectrum.
language now for it. Instead of
Yeah.
masculine, feminine, we say right brain, left brain, or left brain, right brain, or mind, body, or heart and head. There is all these are different languages for communicating what we mean. Is a
Yeah.
balance. Person is a balance. Doesn't matter a man or a woman. If we are balanced, then we lead a better life for oneself and the community and beyond. I
Exactly.
think we are a little bit going off time or so. You are holding time about Shiba?
Yeah, we have about another minute and a half.
Okay.
Yeah. I just wanted to tell you, Manzar, before you get too excited about people plunging swords into one another, that I'm ex-military. I don't know if you know that. Okay.
Yeah, I do. I
Oh, you
do
do.
know that.
Okay.
That's why you can be very helpful if you have been in front. You know what people how they suffer and everything. Have you been?
Have I been in what?
At what level you have been in military?
In the army?
In the army, right?
Yes. And
What
so,
were you asked to do?
well, I was actually behind the scenes. So I didn't, at that time, women were not allowed into combat.
Yeah, right. So behind the scene is a whole other story.
It's a whole, but the point is that I did have to be able to, I had to be armed and I had to know how to defend myself. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, and that wasn't pleasant, frankly, for me. I resisted having to do it, but at the end of the day, if you can't have some people in the military who are willing to shoot and some who
Yeah.
aren't, or you don't
Yeah.
have an army, you have something else, so.
Right.
Can I ask
Right.
what motivated you to join the army?
Well, at that time, I got college for free, which I wanted. My parents didn't think girls should go to college. And so then I was able to afford it. And it got me to Europe. I wanted to see Europe.
Yeah, so
So,
it's always a financial motivation, that's what
yes,
they are
yes.
using.
Mhm. It
And
wasn't like I didn't have a burning desire to go into the military.
exactly, in my mind, it's like another form of slavery. You don't have the money, so then you have to go to the army. How free is that?
Right. Well, that's right. That's what's happening now. We've pushed off that duty to the poor sections of society, you know.
Exactly. If we were going to mandate, if we have a war like Iraq war and everybody like in Vietnam, if everybody had to go to Iraq, don't you think we would see also the same thing that happened with the Vietnam War? The privileged kids, they say, hey, I'm not going to war, what are you kidding me? And
Right.
but now we figured it out. Oh, well, the rich people don't go to war. It's the poor people who do, and then they don't have a voice.
Right, right. And what we're mostly doing in these countries, and I'm sorry to say, is that we're just defending our economic interests. That's really it. So anyway, I think we are running out of time here, Monzar. We're going a little over. So.
Well, ladies, it was good. We learned a lot and shared. And just remember, these conversations have just all peaceful purposes. We're not here to bash here and do whatever. It's all peaceful. We're trying to find solutions. Okay,
Yes.
peaceful solutions to our humanity problems. That's it. And hopefully we do just a little bit, a million.
Okay. Thank you, Manzar. Thank you, Noelle.
Thank you both.
Very nice. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you.
Okay, let's talk sometime, Noelle.
Yeah, I love to.
Okay, I'll email you. Okay, good night.
Thank you.
Good night.